This may or may not have been made while I am sick, so warning if my voice sounds unusually low. Chapter 7 Cycles. It was almost as if I blinked out. One minute I was aware of my surroundings, and the next I was on the floor, sobbing in pain. Once again, I ate way too much, and I wasn't really sure why. It made no sense to me. Clearly it wasn't helping fill the void that I felt, but why did I do it again? Not only that, but it made me really sick last time. I didn't want to go through that again, but somehow over and over I found myself in the exact scenario. Something upsetting would occur, and I immediately would try to solve it with food. Sad thing was, it never worked half the time. Instead, it just made me feel sick. More often than not, I would eat food to the point where I would end up being sick, and then keep eating. I'm not sure where this coping mechanism came from, but it quickly became a really bad habit that I was deeply ashamed of. Believe me, I wanted to stop, but at the same time, it seemed nearly impossible. With the ongoing tension between my parents and me not only being in the middle of it, but the cause of it, I just needed something to cope. I tried other things, I really did. From art to knitting to sport. But nothing could ever distract me enough to prevent the inevitable binge. It was to the point where I was binging at least 3 or 4 times a week, and I felt horrible about it. My parents often wondered where the food went or why I never seemed to have any spare change. Why? Because I couldn't stop myself from stuffing my face with hopes of solving my sadness. The other downside to this was weight gain. Unfortunately, eating more equals weight gain, which was a rule I wasn't exempt from. As someone who was a stick all of their life, it was quite noticeable too, especially with how fast it was happening. Within a couple months, none of my men's clothing fit anymore. Those work pants that were always too loose on me no longer fit me in the slightest. Mom had spent Dad's hard-earned money to get me new ones. Thankfully, with how the dresses were made, everything depended on how tightly you tied it, so it was going to take a much bigger difference to outgrow those. Everything was happening so rapidly that I could barely recognize myself anymore. Associating myself with my body just didn't work anymore, and there was a huge disconnect. Even bigger than before, when all that disconnected me was gender. I just didn't look like me anymore when my face was filled out and my body was noticeably whiter. Thankfully, I wasn't like Dad and collected all my weight in the upper body. It was pretty evenly distributed, allowing me to still feel like I had a chance at passing as a woman. Though out of all the bad things that were happening, one good thing came out of it. It sounds incredibly dumb, but with the weight gain, I looked like I had breasts. Albeit small, but still breasts. Out of everything, that was the only thing I actually liked, which made it even harder to let go of my dangerous coping mechanism. Obviously, if I did lose weight, then all the signs of a chest would be gone. I wasn't sure I could let that go. At the same time, I knew that what I was doing was horrendous for my health, and eating myself to death wasn't exactly how I wanted to go. As mentioned earlier, it was noticeable. That means the family definitely noticed. At first, Dad was all for me looking like a man. He never liked how skinny I was in the first place. Over time, that feeling faded, and he started seeing me as useless and fat. On the other side of things, Mom was very concerned. Packing on as much weight as I did in such a small time period was worrying, so I understood where she was coming from. Truth be told, I was worried too. Countless times Mum tried to get me to talk, but I was too ashamed to admit anything. If anything, it made me feel even guiltier that I was worrying her, making me more prone to do what made me feel guilty in the first place. It was just one big, incomprehensible cycle.